Welcome to The Explainer. Today, let's talk about a man who was fired from the very company he created, only to come back and, well, change the world. We're going to dive into the Steve Jobs archive to really understand his journey, in his own words.
That right there, that was the core philosophy of Steve Jobs. It was this belief that drove one of the most incredible careers in modern history. You see, for him, it wasn't just about business. It was about leaving a mark, about pouring care and love into the things we create. And to really get that, we have to go all the way back to the beginning.
To understand the man, you've got to start in a garage in Silicon Valley, back when it was still full of apricot and prune orchards.
This experience was absolutely crucial. His dad, Paul, was just a genius with his hands, and by giving his son a small workbench and some tools, he gave him something way more valuable: this fundamental understanding that the world around him was actually built by people.
This wasn't just some kid's hobby. It was a huge lesson in what was possible. These kits came with these super detailed manuals that explained exactly how they worked, turning these complex gadgets from total mysteries into something you could actually understand, something you could build yourself.
And that right there, that is the key to his entire mindset. That feeling, the idea that the world isn't some fixed, magical place, but something you could actually understand, something you could change, and something you could build upon, that became the foundation for literally everything he would do later.
So, armed with this confidence, Jobs and his buddy Steve Wozniak started a company in a garage. And you know what? Their initial goal wasn't to change the world at all. It was way, way simpler than that.
What started as just a project for a few friends quickly morphed into Apple Computer. It wasn't some grand business plan, It was just a series of practical solutions to problems right in front of them. Their goal was just to sell some circuit boards, but a single order for fully assembled machines, well, that changed everything.
So in less than 10 years, Apple just explodes from a garage project into a $2 billion giant. Jobs had just launched the Macintosh, a computer he truly believed was the future, and then bam! In this stunning boardroom coup, he was fired from the very company he had willed into existence.
He was publicly thrown out of the company he created. I mean, can you imagine? It was a devastating and very, very public failure. For someone whose identity was so wrapped up in Apple, this was more than just losing a job. It was like losing a piece of himself.
But here's the thing about great stories. What looked like a horrible ending was actually a pivotal new beginning. The years after he left Apple were some of the toughest, for sure, but also the most formative of his entire career. So he's exiled from Apple, and he enters this really difficult but really important period of his life. He pours all his energy into two wildly different ventures, one building these super high-end computers for academics, and the other trying to completely revolutionize animated movies.
And let me tell you, it was not easy. He poured his own money into these companies, basically keeping them alive through sheer force of will. Next computers, they sold terribly. And Pixar was just scraping by making commercials. It was a decade of real difficulty, but it taught him the brutal necessity of focus.
Now, what's so interesting here is how he framed it. You'd think this would be the worst time of his life, right? But this adversity, to him, wasn't a setback. It was a release. It let him rediscover his passion for just building new things, free from the heavy weight of all his past success.
So after a decade of just grinding it out, both of his companies hit gold. And in this amazing twist of fate, it was the success of these companies that would pave his way right back to the one that had kicked him out.
In 1996, Apple was struggling badly. They needed a new operating system, so they bought Next for $427 million. In this really remarkable turn of events, the deal brought Steve Jobs right back to the company he co-founded.
And he brought with him all that hard-won wisdom from his time in the wilderness, a philosophy of ruthless focus. He famously just slashed Apple's bloated product line, took it from over a dozen different things down to just 4 essential areas. And the result? Apple was profitable again in just 1 year.
This new focus unleashed a decade of innovation unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It started with the iMac, which basically saved the company. Then came the iPod, which put 1,000 songs in your pocket. Then the iPhone, which completely redefined the phone. And finally, the iPad. He didn't just save Apple, he reshaped our entire digital world.
His entire journey, the garage, the fall, the wilderness, and that triumphant return, it all gave him this unique perspective on life. And in his famous Stanford commencement address, he boiled it all down into a few core lessons.
These weren't just nice sayings, they were rules for life that he had learned the hard way.
And this was his final challenge to all of us, to shake off this idea that life is fixed, and instead to go out and make your mark on it. It's a call to action. It's an invitation to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. So, what wonderful thing will you make?